Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Ask Ralph, the show where we answer all of your burning financial questions. I'm host Ralph Estep Jr., and today we have an important topic to discuss: 7 ways to raise your credit score by 200 points in less than 5 years. Join us today as we put together a solid plan to increase your credit score.
Welcome to the Ask Ralph podcast, where listening to an experienced financial professional can help you make sense of confusing questions, current headlines, and industry trends about taxes, small business, financial decision-making, investment strategies, and even the art of proper budgeting, as Ralph makes the complex simple by sharing his real-world knowledge with all things financial. Now here's your host, Ralph Estep Jr.
You know, the truth is, credit scores play a crucial role in our financial lives. Talked about this on other podcasts. They can range anywhere from 300 to 850 and are calculated using data from your credit report. The most commonly used credit scoring model is what's called a FICO, F-I-C-O, created by the Fair Isaacs Corporation. It's considered the industry standard for determining an individual's credit risk. Well, let's talk about what these credit score buckets look like. According to FICO, if your credit score is less than 580, you're considered to have poor credit. Makes it difficult to get loans. If you have between 580 and 669, you are considered to have fair credit. From 670 to 739 is good, and from 749 to 799 is very good. And it tops out at 800 for those who have exceptional credit. So if you find yourself with a poor or fair credit score and want to raise it by a whopping 200 points in less than 5 years, it's definitely doable. However, it's going to require some effort on your part. Raising your credit score requires vigilance and discipline. Can't stress that enough. So let's dive into 7 ways we suggest for raising your credit score by those coveted 200 points. Number 1, learn how your credit works and how to use it. Simple, no-brainer here, isn't it? Understanding how credit works is essential if you want to improve your credit score effectively. There are plenty of free resources available online, like YouTube videos and articles that provide great tips on utilizing your credit wisely. We have a whole list of podcasts where we talk about credit scores and how to manage your credit effectively. Use those resources, do some studying, do some research, and find ways to understand how credit works. Unfortunately, we don't teach our children and young adults this in school. It's not something that's thought about. In fact, I have a neighbor lives across the street from us, and I gave her a copy of my book, Mastering Your Finances, and I talked about that a little bit earlier in this podcast, but it's something that her and I talked about. I said, this is something we really should teach kids in school, but it seems like it's not taught. So that was number 1. Number 2, always pay your bills on time. Well, this is sort of a no-brainer, isn't it? You need to pay your bills on time. Payment history makes up a significant portion. It's estimated 35% of your credit score is based on paying your bills on time. We cannot stress more important, paying your existing bills on time. We recommend setting up automatic payments for at least the minimum amount due and making separate payments to pay down debt. So if you've got a credit card and they offer, which I think all credit cards and accounts offer, automatic payments, set your automatic payment to be at least equal to the minimum payment so that you're never going to incur a late situation. I'm not saying that's all you should pay, but at least from the credit score point, you're not going to be late. Let's move on to number 3. Pay down credit card debt. The amount you owe contribute 30% to your FICO credit score. So what did I say a few minutes ago? 35% is your payment history. A full 30% is the amount that you owe. Once you've set up recurring payments and reminders, we advise focusing on paying down existing credit card debt. Aim to keep your credit utilization ratio, well, what is that, Ralph, you might ask? The amount of credit used compared to the limit below 30%. So there's a lot of 30s there. So 30% of your FICO score is based on what you owe. But more importantly, the key is to keep your credit card utilization That's the amount you have charged on your credit card below 30%. Let's move on to number 4. Avoid closing credit cards because it will lower available credit. We just talked about that utilization. Closing a credit card can increase your credit utilization, which is worth 30% of your score. We advise against closing accounts, even if they are not frequently used. Keeping older accounts open can help maintain a higher available credit limit. You might not be using it, pay attention to it, get the statements, keep an eye on it, but those things aren't going to negatively impact your score. Number 5, avoid closing credit cards because it can reduce the average age of your credit. So we talked about the utilization amount, lowering your available credit, but also it can reduce the average age of your credit. If you've got, like when I was a young person, I think we were at the shopping mall one day and my dad said, you really should get a JCPenney's credit card. And I'm like, okay, that sounds good. I think they gave me a whopping $200 credit limit, but it's something that I've kept open. In fact, I don't know, I haven't used it forever. Maybe it's not open, but it's something you keep open because it's a credit history thing, the average age. The age of your credit history matters too, accounting for 15% of your score. So think about this, folks. 35% payments on time, 30%, how much you owe, and now another 15% on the average age of your credit. Number 6, avoid opening additional credit lines unless necessary. Opening multiple new lines of credit within a short period can negatively affect your score, especially if you already have a relatively short credit history. New credit make up 10% of your overall score. So be selective about applying for new lines unless absolutely necessary. When I used to work in the credit union field, this is one of the things I keyed my loan officers in on. Do we have a situation where someone is, running up their credit very quickly? So if we see somebody that comes in that just opened up a bunch of new credit lines, it could be that they're having a significant financial issue and they're looking for every way possible to fund a lifestyle or something like that. So that's one of the things that the model really looks at very closely. Number 7, aim to handle different types of credit. Managing different types of credit has a positive impact on your overall score. Again, this is a 10% value. Having an auto loan or mortgage and handling it responsibly so that you can successfully pay off large balances over time. This is another thing. When I was in the lending area, I would say to my loan officers, what does this person have? Do they have 5 credit cards? Maybe not a good risk. But, if they've got a mortgage and then a car loan and then a personal loan, maybe a credit card, it's a good balance. So that's the different kinds of credit things that we're talking about. All of these things will help you build your credit score and increase it. Again, it doesn't happen overnight. Remember that building stronger credit takes time and patience. But following these 7 steps will put you on the right track towards raising those crucial points in less than 5 years. It doesn't take 5 years, folks. It really doesn't. But you have to start somewhere. Well, that's all we have for today's episode. I hope you found these tips helpful in your journey to improve your credit score. If you had any questions or want to share your success stories, don't hesitate to reach out. Before we wrap up, I'd like to remind you to share this podcast with your friends and family. This may be a podcast that you can go to our podcast page, and that's www.askralphpodcast.com. Find the one you're looking for, click share, and send it to your friends and family. You also can leave us a review or click on the little microphone icon down at the bottom right and leave us a voicemail with your questions. We'd love to have you as a part of our show. And as always, today's episode is brought to you by Saggio Accounting Plus. For all your accounting needs, visit our website at www.askralph.com. Well, thank you for tuning in today. Until next time, stay financially savvy and work on that credit.
Thank you for joining us on the Ask Ralph podcast. And with a simple click to subscribe, we'll invite you back to our next episode. And remember, financial issues don't have to be complicated. Just ask Ralph. The information contained in this episode of Ask Ralph is based on data available as of the date of its release. Saggio Accounting Plus and Ask Ralph Media, Inc. is under no obligation to update this content if changes occur. Applying this information to your specific situation requires careful consideration of all facts and circumstances, and any information provided is not to be considered as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult your tax advisor or attorney before acting on any material covered.